Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon. So, yes, people are just trickling in. We'll just wait for a couple of minutes and then start. I realize that today is a wrong day to have the class because yesterday was the festival. So then we are all time pressed. You're able to see the screen shared presentation?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, great. Then we will start it. In another minute, we will start. All right, I think let's start. So we have completed the technical competency framework TCF. Now we are getting into the leadership competency framework. Some of you actually wanted to know that we're going to discuss some frameworks, some models. Definitely, yes. In this module, we will learn some models and initially the theory part and subsequently using a case study. Hopefully, we will try to complete it today. If something is left out, we will start with the complete in the next class. Now, let me ask you, what are the competencies that a leader needs?
Team building,
Yeah.
empathy,
Empathy, okay. Yeah.
collaboration,
Sorry?
collaboration,
Collaboration, okay. Yeah, what else?
Vision. So vision.
Vision, okay, great. Yeah. What other competencies? What is expected of a leader?
To deliver, sir.
Huh?
To deliver.
To deliver. So to deliver, what competencies do you need?
Leader should be efficient or proficient to understand what what kind of challenges might come, and he should be prepared for them.
Okay. I think one thing that every leader should be capable of is taking decisions.
Right, sir.
decision making. Yeah.
Yeah, decision making is certainly a very important competence that one should have. And every leader should also develop people. And the major responsibility of a leader is to develop the people below him so that the organization flourishes, isn't it? You're not protecting your job, you're trying to train people for the future requirements of the organization. Therefore, you should be a good trainer too, right? Then you should know how to deal with data. Every leader has to deal with a lot of data, right? I mean, you must have been seeing the leaders in the organization day in and day out dealing with a lot of data and making sense out of it. So therefore, he should have some good analytical skills. You all agree?
Yes, sir.
So leadership actually competency of a leader are completely different from technical competencies that we had dealt with in the previous classes. Now let us look at what are the models that are available and what kind of competencies that are required for a leadership role. Now, one model that we're discussing is about the Rubin's leadership competency framework. Now, Rubin has identified 5 different competencies that a leader requires. The first one is the analytical competencies. Now, leadership efficacy relates to the knowledge and skill necessary for being reflective, self-aware, thoughtful, and attentive to one's own and others' feelings and purposes. I think one of you have said that they require to be uh, very empathetic. So he should be sensitive not only to others' feelings, but also should be sensitive to his own feelings. And therefore, one competence in this regard is he should have high emotional stability for the person concerned. Now, it includes clarifying situations and problems, assessing stakeholder and system issues, considering and selecting among alternative strategies, and factoring of relevant data and historical accounts in planning and implementing strategies and evaluating the outcomes for that particular context. So one definitely he or she should have high levels of dealing with situations and able to analyze the situations to make decisions relevant to that particular context. And the second competency that Ruben has identified is the personal competencies. Now, he should be able to focus on his personal attributes, including cognitive ability, energy, conviction, character, and the expression of values factors that generally lead to one to be admired and perceived as a role model by others. I think this is very, very important. As we all know, one thing that a leader should be able to create is to have the followers. And that can happen only when a leader is able to display a huge amount of energy, ability to deal with various people and the context. And then his character should be impeccable character. Leaders have a character should be unquestionable. He should have the conviction to what he is or she is talking about, and he should practice the values that he preaches. And then he is probably then admired for his character, conviction, and the kind of standards that he maintains, the morals and the values that he practices, and then he will have his followers. So there are certain personal competencies that are required. The third one that Ruben has identified is he should have some organizational competencies. One that, of course, you have mentioned is he should be able to set the vision. He should be a visionary. You should envision the organization. He should be able to develop the strategy, and not only develop the strategy, but he should have the ability to execute it. Then he should be able to manage the knowledge and collaboration and empowerment. I think most of these points that you all have mentioned, you should have the ability to collaborate with people, you should empower the people, and then you should know how to manage the organization's knowledge resources. Then you should be a good coach, change and crisis manager, and the range of administrative capabilities judged to be important and introduce leadership effectiveness in a group, organization, and community settings with varying purpose, function, and size. Now, these are all related to organizational competencies. And then he also need to have certain position related competencies. these position related competencies are he should have thorough knowledge and grip on the subject matter that he is dealing with, and he should have the necessary skills for effective leadership within that specific field. If it is business, you should have the business acumen. If it is healthcare, you should have the ability to deal with a set of healthcare professionals. If it is sports, the sports professionals. So whatever the field that he is in, he should have the expertise in that, and then he should be able to include the context, the job and specific sector related education, training and background experiences, job familiarity, organized understanding or professional development into the position that he is holding, whatever may be the position, that is a CEO or a chairman or an MD or whatever the position that he is holding. In those things, he should be able to integrate them. And then he should have absolutely top class communication skills. I mean, a leader's job, 50% of the leader's job is related to the communication that he keeps in constantly with his people in the organization and outside the organization, both with the written and spoken. So therefore, a leader should have impeccable communication competencies as far as the role is concerned or competencies are concerned. So his knowledge and skills required for effective interaction in interpersonal group in the organization and public settings. I mean, a leader is expected to go and deliver, connect with various people outside, and then speak on various public meetings. Therefore, he should have the ability to speak in those kinds of contexts, including message sending and message reception in varying contexts and with varying individuals and groups. In fact, in your own experience, you would have seen some leaders are really, really top class in terms of their communication through social media. So all others may not have that, but some people have that ability. And if you have any examples, you can share that example with the group now. And
So Narendra Modi, maybe.
okay,
I mean, best known example in.
yeah, okay. But then Narendra Modi, unfortunately, doesn't manage on his own. He has a group of people who manages that. So it is, I think, basically he
But
communicates.
sir, it is, yeah, but it is, I guess, then it should be with all of them. मतलब जिनका भी अच्छे level पे social media account है, they don't handle themselves,
Sir,
right?
every leader is trained, so they also have this kind of training given to them.
I know, but there are some people, for example, till recently, he was the HR head in Deloitte, Nathan, and he was also an HRD national level president. I think he does most of it on his own. He doesn't have any people who support that. He has got that uncanny knack and the ability to manage his own social media account. A lot of professionals manage their own social media accounts. Well, like
So
the
we have Jai Shankar as well, Mr. Jai Shankar. He's a great example.
Jay Shankar is also
Part of bureaucrats, we understand, but still, the kind of understanding he comes across with, that is amazing.
Yeah, Jaishankar, we all know that he is basically a trained IAS officer,
Yeah,
IFS officer, and he has been in the
IFS officer.
for a long time. So obviously he has that ability. So
Yes,
and
sir.
people other than that, the politicians and all, yes, they manage because they basically communicate their philosophy and their outlook and all. And the rest of the professionals working, the IAS officers working with them will take care of it. Otherwise, some professionals have got outstanding abilities. For example, you take this guy. Anand Mahindra. I think he manages his social media accounts very effectively and he gets involved directly himself is, I gather. Yeah.
Sir, Dr. Bhelumani, the founder and the CMD of ThyroCare.
Yes. Yeah. Very money, correct. So there are some people who are really good at it, and good leaders should have those good communication skills in competencies, including managing their communications on the social media. So specific communication dimensions such as establishing credibility and trust, persuasion, interpersonal relations and team building, listening and questioning, question asking, writing, speaking, diversity and intercultural relations, facilitation, negotiation, and conflict resolution. See, a lot of these things, and I think it's very important for you to understand some of these examples. If you want to answer during your test and all that, whatever the examples that we talked about, you remember them. And if you have to answer a question related to Rubin's leadership competency framework, so apart from giving all these points which are basically theoretical, if you also give some relevant examples, the evaluator will be much more impressed about your application knowledge rather than just theoretical knowledge. So in effect, what we are talking about, what are the 5 competencies that Ruben is talking about? Starting with analytical competencies, then personal competencies, then organizational competencies, positional competencies, and communication competencies. Now, these are the 5 important competencies that he is looking at. So the whatever we have discussed just now, these all summarized into a small one table, where under each competency, what is required is specifically mentioned here. So you can easily remember for any such question in the examination. So, I mean, examination is only one perspective, but otherwise also you can learn and understand what competencies are required for a major leadership position, and what is there, what is dominant in that. See, for example, in communication competencies, we are saying that you should be a role model, because you require to create your own followership, and the followers should give their best to a leader. That is why you need to know how to make yourself a role model. Okay, I'm just giving you an example. So this is what the Rubin's leadership competency framework is. Then we have, yeah, the same thing in a different way the presentation is made. So leadership competency scorecard. You can look at these 5 competencies, which are basically what the Rubin model is. The second one, of course, is very interesting here again. The pyramid leadership competency framework. As you can see here, in the pyramid leadership competency framework, we have 3 major groups of competencies. One is the core competencies. The second one is the leadership competencies. The third one is professional competencies. This competency framework looks at the leadership competencies into 3 different frameworks. Now, under each framework, as you can see here, under core competencies, leadership competencies, and the professional competencies, there are some subgroups. So altogether, you have about 23 competencies that are outlined here, and these are all part of the pyramid leadership competency framework. Now, once we are done with the pyramid competency framework, then we will also look at a case study that is there in the textbook, and we will discuss more about the leadership competency challenges and how people can, transform from being an ordinary person to a great leader, and what are the fallacies that one passes through in the competency framework. So let us now look at the 3 levels of 3 groups of competencies under the leadership competency. Yeah, any question? Do you have any question?
No, sir.
No, sir. No.
Okay. So what are the core competencies under the pyramid leadership competency framework? This is the second model that we are discussing. Now, personal skills required all levels of leadership. Essential competencies for a person need to become a leader are communication. I think this communication keeps coming back and forth in time and again in the leadership competency framework. One important competence any leader should have is a top class communication skills. Now, what are the sub-components of communication skills? Basically, the leader should have the basic communication skills. The first, his mind should be, I think communication is what happens in your mind is what is communicated. Obviously, a leader is expected to have very clear thought process, and thought clarity is what gives you the communication clarity. Therefore, a leader should be able to have very clear thoughts on what he wants to communicate. So expresses oneself effectively in both individual and group settings. Now, what is to be communicated in a group and what is to be communicated in individual level, to what extent should be communicated, how long it should be communicated, what kind of choice of words you should use. All these things are very important for a leader. And managing communication within a certain time frame is all the more important, right? Communicates plans and activities in a manner that supports strategies for employee involvement. Now, which means you have you have your own vision that and mission of the organization. You follow certain or you have some conviction for certain value system that you want to follow, or you follow, or your organization follows, and then you communicate these things through your to communicate to the employees about the strategies, employees or whoever it is. Now, if it is an organization, it is employees. If it is an NGO, it is maybe employees. It is a political party, your cadres, whatever the organization is. A leader is a leader, irrespective of the kind of organization he or she is leading, and they should be able to communicate their plans and their strategies to the employees in a very, very unambiguous way and in a simple, easy to understand way. All leaders are top class listeners. As much as you are a communicator, you are also a good listener. Expresses written ideals clearly using good grammatical form. I think these days, written communication has become much easier because of various AI tools that are available to the leaders. Otherwise, also, all leaders are great in communicating through written messages and comprehends written material with little or no help. I think this is where, of course, some differences are there between political parties versus a corporate leader. Corporate leaders are very, very effective, and they easily understand long communications. They have got uncanny ability and in looking at what they need to look at in a communication, and they'll pick up the right words, right vocabulary, right meanings very, very quickly. So that is the basic communication skills. Then there should be top class negotiators. I mean, the leaders have to often deal with various kinds of the conflicting situations, and they should have the ability to deal with the conflicts, and hence they need to have good negotiating skills to resolve any conflicts that they need to deal with. They should know how to create teams, how to make teams work, how to perform in teams. All the competencies required. So use appropriate interpersonal style to steer team members towards their goal. Now, how do they deal? I think each leader has his own style. Each leader has his own way of dealing with their teams, and no two leaders follow the same team working strategies, but then all of them are good at leading their teams. Allocates decision making and empowers people. Basically, once you are dealing with the teams, the leaders have the ability to empower the teams that are working with him or with her, and then make them to take decisions and take the task assigned to them forward. Now, organizes resource to accomplish tasks with maximum efficiency. That is what the leader's job is. The leader is not expected to do anything on his own, except that he should create the teams, he should create the pool of talent, he should empower them, he should make them to do the work by taking decisions independently, and only provide any mentor support or a guidance to the concerned team members. Then influences events to achieve goals beyond what is collected for. So a leader always looks, because he is expected to have that visionary capabilities. He always looks at what is written and what is visible, and he is going to read beyond what others cannot see. Then creative problem solving. Every leader has to solve problems. If you can't solve problems with the best of the communication abilities also, you will not be considered to be a great leader. And therefore, his ability to identify and collect information relevant to the problem. First of all, identification of problem is 50% solution. So if you're a great leader, or if you're working with a great leader, you know that the leader is able to identify the problems with a lot of clarity of thought, and not the symptoms. He will go beyond the symptoms and identify the problem, and uses brainstorming techniques to create all others in creating variety of solutions, and then selects the best course of action that fits the context to solve the problem. So your ability to creatively involve people and find solutions to problems is another communications related competency. Then he will have great interpersonal skills. With respect, trust, and dignity, he will deal. I think if you look at any leader, first of all leaders are trusted by their followers, and therefore the building of trust, creating that respect, give respect and take respect, and dignity, maintaining the dignity of the people who are associated with him or with her, are very, very important competencies that they should values that they must follow. Works well with others, promotes a productive culture by valuing individuals. I think they will not berate anybody, however small or big. They will not create any idea or big or small, that is, they will have the ability to elicit the response from everybody, take objective, make an objective assessment and take objective decisions, so that once the decision is made, he will carry it forward. Not only he will carry it, he will carry the people involved along with that, so that his leadership is respected. Then manage client relationship. He will be great at managing the relationship with the people, both internally and externally. See, the client relationship is basically, he also has internal clients. In fact, every top leader of the organization, all the departmental heads are his internal clients. Now he has to carry them with him along, as much as he carries the external environment, the leaders in the external environment with whom he is dealing as a part of his relationship management exercise. So he has the ability to understand others. He will first seek to understand others before he seeks others to understand him. Then he will give the feedback appropriately in the right tone and tenor at the right place and time for any improvement in the organization, the performance of the team or the performance of the task, so that everybody who is dealing with him maintains cordial relationships and they have respect for him. He has self-direction. He decides where his organization has to be taken forward, and then he will set the goals for the team. He will define the strategies for that. He will make available resources like time and budgets to the team members who have to deliver. All this will be done because he has or she has a very high level of self-direction. Assembles and leads teams to achieve established goals with deadlines, so that others feel empowered, because he is not achieving, it is the teams which are achieving, therefore they feel they are empowered. And when people have that feeling of empowerment, their trust and their respect for the leader even goes up further. And he will be flexible where it is necessary, and then he will alter the situations for successful achievement of the outcomes. Then build appropriate relationship with the people both internally and externally. He knows how to network with people. He will build constructive and supportive relationships, so that the accomplishment of his task can be done very efficiently. He will be top class professionals. He will set himself as a role model, sets himself as an example, stays current in terms of professional development knowledge. He will be looked upon by the people as somebody who knows the latest developments in his field of area of expertise, contributes to and promotes the development of profession through active participation of the key stakeholders in the organization. These are all the competencies related to his communication. So these are all the sub parts of that communication. Then he will also be, he has the basic knowledge related to financials, does not waste resources. He is very judicious in deployment of resources, particularly financial resources, which are limited for any organization. Look for methods to improve the process that have positive impact on the profitability of the organization. He will have business acumen, reacts positively to key developments in the areas of expertise that may affect the business, and leads process improvement programs in all major systems falling under the area of his control. See, at a leadership level, you will conduct yourself in a systematic development of the organization, not in an ad hoc manner. Therefore, his ability to understand the business, his ability to get the insights of the business and the industry, and his ability to create systems that are sustainable for a longer term success of the organization are very important competencies. Now, those are all the first set of competencies that we talked about. These are core competencies. Then you come to the leadership competencies. Now, the leadership competencies, the skills needed to drive the organization into cutting edge new technologies. These form the basic structure that separates leaders from bosses. Without them, a leader is just a hollow windbag. Naturally, you will have those kinds of windbags only in government organizations, where leadership is thrust upon certain people, irrespective of whether they deserve it or not. But most of the private organizations, a leader is definitely going to display most of the qualities of the competencies that we talk about. first, I think, is the abilities of a leader are display attributes that make people glad to follow, provide a feeling of trust. And if you see, the trust word is coming time and again. So creating that feeling of trust is a very, very important competency or a value that a leader should practice. Without that value of trust, nobody will be accepted as a leader in any organization. In fact, even in a family, if father or mother are playing leadership role, obviously the children should have the feeling of trust. If there's no trust, obviously you cannot be a leader, whether you are a father or a mother. Rallies the troops and builds morale when going gets tough. Then visioning process applies efforts to increase productiveness in areas needing most improvement, creates and sets goals, looking at the environment of the business that he is leading in. He will always look for new opportunities, new avenues. Before others see the opportunities or avenues, the leader will be able to envision them and then convert them into goals. From goals, he will be able to convert them into strategies and help the people to achieve those goals. So senses the environment by using personal sphere of influence, subordinate sphere to the influence subordinates and peers, gain commitment by influencing teams to set objectives, and reinforces change by embracing it. Now, that is one competence that every leader should have. He is flexible or she is flexible, and he is also or she is also capable of bringing in change to the organization. He or she cannot be a sort of deal to the change in the organization, then the organization will suffer badly. So a good leader will be a good change agent to the extent that he will lead the organization to future performance. Create and lead teams. Obviously, a leader has to lead teams rather than doing things on his own. He is not expected to do the operational work. He is going to do a more of a strategic work, and therefore he will develop high performance teams. He will quickly take teams out of the storming and norming phases and into the performing phases. So he will drive their performance by setting goals, giving directions, giving the required inputs or mentoring them, and finally make the teams feel that they are performing under the leadership of that person. Now, assesses situations quickly and accurately, takes charge when the situation demands it, makes right things happen on time. As a leader, he should lead from the front. He should not be seen as somebody who is a laggard or who doesn't make decisions. He should not be procrastinating at any point in time. We should take the situation to his control and then lead it from the front. Foster conflict resolutions. He should be a good negotiator. He should be a good, tactful negotiator to effectively deal with any disagreements, any conflicts that are there within the team discussions or the meetings, and he should successfully be able to sell his ideas in terms of getting the acceptance by the group of people who are working with him. And if others have some better ideas than him, he should have the ability, he should have the courage, he should have the conviction to actually take the others' ideas and then appreciate their ideas and take it forward. Then he should have the top class, qualities for leading projects and accomplishing the project related goals. Tracks critical steps in projects, identifies and react to the outside forces that might influence or alter the organizational goals. And then, so there are several examples in several case studies that you can definitely discuss. But we have one example, one small case study that is there. So when we discuss some of these things, you will be able to understand better from a practice perspective. Establish a course of action to accomplish a specific goal, identifies, evaluates, and implements measurement systems for current and future projects. What it basically talks about is you will be very objective, you will be very flexible to the extent that it requires, and your decisions are based on what the data speaks and nothing else. Because if you're not objective in your assessments and evaluations, people will lose trust in you. Then implement employees involvement strategies. He will get the buy-in from all the employees and then though he is leading the team, he will work towards making people believe that they are the ones who are actually driving the entire activity of that particular project or the organization, and therefore they feel that they are empowered, and that feeling of empowerment is what makes the leader a distinctive leader, rather than one who is always uh, directing the employees to do every small little thing. Then he coaches and trains peers and subordinates. The one of the key deliverable of a leader is to train his teams for future requirements of the organization. Therefore, he'll be very good at understanding what his team members are doing, identifying their strengths and weaknesses, providing appreciation where the team members achieve certain outstanding results, and providing feedback for improvement where it is required in a conducive, timely manner, so that people will feel that the leader is helping them to improve their performance. So all these things are uh, basically required of a leadership. Then we come to the professional and individual competencies. We spoke about it a little while ago. Skills and knowledge needed to direct the systems and processes that the leader controls, and hence kind of a systems thinking is very important for a leader. He should be able to understand the entire organizational system and direct the systems for any improvement or betterment. Professional competencies form the motor that binds the pyramid together. So he should be a top class professional in his approach, in his communication, his decision making, in his team leadership and all that. Without some knowledge of the technical skills that they direct, the pyramid soon begins to fall apart, and the organization begins to operate in a damage control mode. So obviously you cannot be a master of everything. A leader need not necessarily know everything that an organization does. But if he doesn't know something, I think he should have the ability to accept it, learn from the experts in the organization, get their involvement, conduct some brainstorming, understand the issues, take decisions appropriately for the betterment of the organization and with the involvement of people. Therefore, the organization can stay together. You are going to bind the organization together. You will not let the organization fall apart. Each organization requires a different set of professional competencies for each leadership position. Although leaders do not need to be subject matter experts for the task that they direct, they must have a basic understanding of the systems and process that they control. And in case they do not have, they should have the curiosity to learn to the extent it is required, so that they can lead the organization better. Then, of course, they have to have the competencies related to the training. And first, because they're going to lead teams, they're going to mentor the teams, they should know what are the adult learning principles. Adults learn differently than the children. Therefore, adult learning principles will help them to actually facilitate the kind of learning that they want to promote among the leadership team members. So facilitate self-directed learning and help with the informal learning of others. So obviously, who is an adult? An adult is one who has the self-direction. And once you have the self-direction, what one can do is basically facilitate the learning process rather than direct the learning process. You facilitate it, the individuals are capable of deciding what they want to do, so they'll have their own self-direction. Then he should have some idea about the instructional design, how people learn at an adult level, what kind of instruction methods are there, what kind of instruction design probably will help him to drive the organizational requirements. So he will, if required, he will take the experts, conduct needs assessment, and see what performance gaps are there, and try to fix those performance gaps by appropriately guiding and training the team members. And he will be a part of leading such initiatives, because he has to ultimately deliver what is required of him as a leader. And therefore, this is one competency that the leader should also have. The leader should also have the consulting competency, because at some point or the other, every leader will have to have to deal with the various stakeholders of the organization. And any dealing with the stakeholders of the organization requires some kind of a negotiation. And therefore, if you have the ability to be a good consultant and you are able to persuade the members in the stakeholder team, then you will come out successfully. Therefore, consulting skills are important skills for the leader. And of course, if you got the instruction skills also, the competencies also, that is even better. Then you can probably, good leaders actually, if you take the example of Jack Welch, I think some time ago I must have shared with you, Jack Welch being a top class leader in the for a world class organization, also has the ability to get involved in the instruction for the leadership team. And that is how he built this entire leadership training program. So he will lead the training programs for the leaders who he wants to create for the future through his own involvement in the instruction, and then he will lead the entire activity from the front. Now, this is what these are the two models that we have discussed. So one is the Ruben model, the other one is, of course, the pyramid leadership competency framework. If you have any questions, I'll pause here. You can discuss questions if you have any. Then I will take you to the case study. Yeah, any questions related to these models? Well, they have obviously some overlap will be there. Each has come with his own framework, but most of it will be common, except that the way they are presented are different.
No questions, sir. No questions so far.
No question. Okay. Anybody else? Anand, any question?
Sir, one thing is there in my mind.
Sorry?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing was running through my mind that
Yeah.
all these models, leadership models, and uh, what is the significance of these models related to development center
Okay.
in
Those
terms of
dimensions you will understand from the next session. After the leadership competency framework is over, then we will get into the development center and how these are useful there. So for that, you'll have to wait for another 1 or 2 sessions.
okay, sir. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, that will be covered in detail, nothing to worry about.
Okay, we are more like I was looking for how, as a function, development center works for functional, leadership frameworks and other technical frameworks and all.
Yes, yes. They see what we are doing is basically we are scaffolding the development center work. We are creating the context and the framework, the contours of it. Then we will, after this topic is over, then we will straight away get into the assessment center, partly some amount of introduction to assessment center. And then we'll go more deeper into the development center and how these things are used in the development center for the improvement of the organization.
Okay, sir.
They will all be related. They will all be related. Yeah.
Now, sir, am I audible, sir?
Yeah, yeah, please.
Sir, though it is not very, not related to the competency model, but just in case if you wish to answer, sir, whatever we see in this leadership model, it is all positive. But in my professional experience, though it is limited one, it is with a public sector company only. I have seen some of the higher managers or leaders who are in leadership position use terror very effectively to manage the company. So everybody is terrified of them, and they will throw files, they will call names, and they are not very subtle about it. And if I look objectively, I found them, though I am not apt in that, I do not have this competency, but I somehow find it that they are more effective. People are more, they give more value to what they say to ensure that they do not run foul of them. So, sir, I have never seen any leadership literature cover this type of thing. So it's as I started saying, it's up to you, sir. If you wish to answer, it's okay. Otherwise, it's also okay.
No,
If
no,
you can
no.
give some
I
perspective.
think we did discuss about it. You see, what happens in particularly in government and public sector, I specifically mentioned this. The leadership is thrust upon them. They are not leaders by themselves. It is leadership is thrust upon them because of various reasons. One reason could be their seniority. Another reason could be their equations with some politicians. Another reason could be the kind of reservation system that we have in our country. So some positions they are thrust upon them, and therefore they end up as a leader, although they may not have the real leadership capabilities. And having gone into that, they know how to twist the system and survive. See, once you are in a position, the position empowers you to take certain, I mean, they use threat, intimidation, then, threatening and all that as a matter of their survival. And they know that their time period is very limited. Most of these positions are for a period of 3 years or maximum 5 years. And in that period of time, their job is only to survive, right? It is not only that. It is not only that. Even in private sector, sometimes you find some people who have been given this role of leadership for whatever the reason. It may be for various reasons. Sometimes you may not, you may know the reason. Sometimes you may not know the reasons. Because ultimately the people who are taking the decisions about creating the leaders are also human beings. They've got their own biases and their own decision making errors. So because of that, they get into these roles, and once they get into the roles, I mean, as human beings, our natural tendency is to fight out the system and survive, and in doing so, they will use all intimidating tactics also. Though that is counterproductive to the organization, organizations can do very little, particularly in the public and private sector, the government sector job roles. So you are absolutely right. There is no second thought about it. I can tell you, there is, at least in the field of higher education, we have in India around 1,200 universities now. Out of 1,200 universities, around 450 universities are state government universities. And all of you are aware, the state government universities, the funding comes mainly from the state government. The budgets come from there. So obviously, the state chief minister, the governor, are the people who take decisions related to that. And in many cases, in fact, a study by some academicians found that about 75% of the vice chancellors, the highest leadership position in a university, are not even qualified to be a professor, for leave alone to be a vice chancellor. Now, that is the kind of leaderships that we have. And once somebody becomes a vice chancellor, he will still survive and be there for 3 years. Only in occasional cases where somebody will be sacked, that's a different issue. But 90% of the cases, they survive. How do they survive? They use all kinds of wrong practices. So they don't lead from the front. They don't develop. They don't leave their footprints in the organization. But still, they stick on to that leadership position. So I have no disagreement with you. It happens, and that is a part of any public life. Yeah, I hope I have answered you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, but a little more on this, sir. So when we face this type of leader, and we are still sincere with him, as if with a leader who is fair and who is leading you and who is encouraging you, somehow if you are sincere, then you also tend to be the same with a person who is of not of good leadership quality. So, sir, how in that case we can justify being a good leader? Why not this threatening type of leader? Then it should be also good, because at the end of the day, people are responding, people are working.
See, that is the reason why when we take these examples, I mean, I took the example of, let us say, Anand Mahindra, I took the example of Jock Welch, took the example of, the leaders who are exemplary in their character, right? Those are the people who are sort of role models. Ratan Tata, for example. These are the people who are actually role models. Therefore, you don't expect the role models to be there everywhere. And when you confront with the kind of leader that you are describing, all that you can do is you should not dilute your leadership qualities. First of all, you should not fall prey for that, because such people may come and go, and the organization goes on for a longer period of time than them. And as long as they are there, I think you also have to survive. You should know the basic tactics of survival and continue to be there in your position till the person goes. I mean, that is what everybody does. So the organizational politics, organizational leadership crisis, these are all a part of every organization. And in a professional environment, we should also know how to not only have a flourishing time with good leaders, also equally protective time with bad leaders. I think that is what is important. Every professional should also know the basic survival tactics in case we are confronting with a bad leader.
That's true, sir. Okay, sir.
Right. So Anand, I think you wanted to say something.
Yes, actually, I was just adding to what Sinha sir has said, and you also seconded that the flip side is that even if you will see a leader who is effective in all these criteria and are humble in nature, are supportive, and kind of, but people do not take them seriously and they don't follow them, they take it lightly. But if the leader is like one which described yeah, Sinhaji, so they are taking very seriously. People take them very kind of effectively. Ki, "Ha, we need to follow it and all that." So we are in a culture where people who are coming with Sahabala mood is becoming more effective, and people are following them. And people who are humble are not being taken seriously and taken lightly. This is also true, and it is not happening in the government sector. The private sector also is facing the same.
See, ultimately, it is a culture of a society. Private sector is relatively more protected than the government sector, because in private sector you have to perform. Otherwise, you will perish as an organization. Forget about it at the individual level. You have to perform and survive. If you don't perform, you don't have survival. In government sector, your performance is not required. You will survive even without your performance. That is what is happening. Except in commercial enterprises, in government, they can also be wound up. But in many cases, government also supports the non-performing organizations for various reasons, for social, cultural, economic, political reasons. And therefore, there the survival rate without performance is higher. Whereas in public sector, in private sector, survival without performance is just not possible. You cannot just exist for long term without your survival. And therefore, if you see the leadership corrections, you take the examples of Tata Group or the Infosys. Whenever they had a bad leader, and once it came out, they very quickly reacted to that and then replaced the leader with somebody else who is more acceptable, who is more respected. See, today Tata Group, Tata Sons chairman Chandrasekharan is much more respected than the previous one, Mistry, isn't it? So in private sector, the correction mechanism is faster, and that is required for them for their own survival. Whereas in government sector, the survival is ensured, and it is sort of a guaranteed by government, and therefore the corrections are not immediate, and it takes some time, longer time. It may not happen ever in some cases, and finally the companies may even suffer because of the bad choices of the leaders, right? But globally, if you look at it, globally, it is a global leadership crisis, not only in India or the lack of models or anything like that. It is a global leadership crisis. Today, we have very, very interesting developments happening across the globe, but there is no leader worth his salt or worth her salt who is addressing them. Russia, Ukraine, Gaza, Palestine and Israel, then China and what is that country they are fighting with? Thailand, is it? Is it Thailand? No, not Thailand. Taiwan. They have an enmity with Taiwan. All these issues are happening, but nobody is addressing at the global. There is no statesmanship, because there's no global leader who is acceptable to anybody. Everyone is looked at as a selfish person. We have the issues related to Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, all these countries. You see, everywhere there's a leadership crisis, because leaders are not trusted in many of the public in public life by and large. Do we trust our own leaders? I think the answer is Publicly, people may say that I swear by my leader, and all. Privately, a lot of people will tell you that they don't trust. But that fortunately is not the case in the case of organizations. Many organizations have good leaders as role models, and they are all able to perform very well. And the environment in which we are all living today is that there is a trust deficit. I think one of the major problems in the world today is there is a trust deficit, and trust is the fundamental principle, the value on which the leadership is built. Right? I hope I have.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. Correctly done.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So if you have done with those questions, let us go quickly to the case study. Has anyone read the case, by the way, that is given in the textbook? Have you read that?
So we just have received the textbook, so was not able to go through it.
Okay, you just received the textbook. All right. I think it is basically, what I will do is I will share this case study then. Then I'll come back to the PPT. So first let me stop sharing this and share the case study so that all of you can see what is there in the textbook. One sec. Yeah. Okay. So quickly, can you all read this? It's just about 2 pages. And then we will get into the discussion mode. Is it visible? Clearly, can you read that?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
It's
sir.
visible.
Yeah. Okay. So it takes about 5 minutes. Just have a quick look at this case. Interesting. And then some of the
It
things
was a
that.
long, hot, and sunny day, and yet Mary was excited that she had been promoted and it was important for her to take up her new role. At this point, she had already been with the organization for the past 10 years and proved herself in her current role as a sales manager. She was ready to take up the role of a regional head. As she walked into the office, she felt that this was the day she had been waiting for a long time. As soon as she reached her office, her manager called her in and congratulated her. She was surprised that the HR head was also sitting in her manager's office. They sat her down, shared with her how proud they were of her achievements, and wished her all the best in her new role. With a smile, self belief, and confidence, Mary walked out of her manager's office and started taking charge of her new role as the regional head. She knew that she had to work hard to ensure that she contributes as efficiently as she had in her earlier role. Very soon, days passed into weeks and weeks into months. The HR head and her manager called her in for a meeting. However, this time the meeting was very different. The HR head reprimanded her in this meeting, sharing criticism and negative feedbacks about her performance. Mary knew they were true, but tried to put on a brave face. She knew that her team had let her down multiple times, and she had let her organization down multiple times. There was close to a 50% attrition rate in her team of 100 sales managers across the region. They had not reached their quarterly targets for the last quarter. In fact, out of 6 months, she had missed reaching her monthly target for 5 months. She knew the market was not very supportive and there had been severe competition. She was shocked. She believed that she had achieved a lot by becoming a regional manager, but it seemed like a long distance away from the dream that she had dreamt of in her mind. This scenario is often familiar in many corporations where employees are promoted based on their performance in their current role, and their ability to lead a team or exhibit leadership qualities is not considered. What went wrong with Mary and other people who encountered encounter such similar situation? This is a case study of a leadership competency framework. This is an organization which involves selling of pharmaceutical products across India. They are a team of 600 sales representatives across the country headed by zonal managers and regional heads. As an HR head, Ram was very. Acha, this is second, I guess.
No, the same. The HR head's name is Ram.
Oh, all right. Okay, the zonal manager and the regional heads. As an HR head, Ram was very upset. He called in his HR manager, Shyam, to identify a method to identify employee leadership capabilities. Shyam was a fresh MBA graduate who studied how leadership competency framework can help build processes that set up people for success rather than failure. As Shyam sat down and thought about which competency framework to use, he remembered a framework he had read earlier about leading others, and leading businesses. He decided first to validate the competency framework. He then created a structured questionnaire with multiple questions, including how do you work with your team as a manager? On what occasions have you supported your team in the past? What has been the biggest achievement of your team? And what was the role played by each of your team members, including yourself, in achieving this success? He created multiple questions like this and set out on a was to identify the leadership qualities required in the organization based on one-on-one discussion with the organization's leaders. As he interviewed multiple managers, he was able to decipher this data and he came up with a leadership competency framework.
I think we can
The
stop.
first is
So that is the context. I think some time ago, who asked me this question, either in your class or somewhere else, how come people who are successful in a certain role, when they're promoted to the next role, they'll fail? See, in this case, as you can see, Mary has been successful in her current role, and then based on her performance, the organization has decided to give her a regional role. Right? Now, as a regional person, she has not been able to perform. In fact, she has been a failure, I mean, so to say, from the organizational perspective, although she was initially very excited about her new role and she wanted to do so many things and all that. But some few months down the line, it has come out that it's happened that, the person has actually been a failure. Now, what makes this kinds of thing? I think the earlier question that, Mr. Alankar Sinha, you asked is also the same. People get promoted for various other considerations than the competencies that are required for that role. And when you assume a certain leadership role without having those competencies, and because of the human greed or human nature, you want to protect that particular position, then all those things that you said come into play. So therefore, at the organizational level, it is very, very important that when you are considering for people for higher levels of leadership roles, they should be tested for their competencies to lead that or to perform in that role or to be successful in that role. That is where actually the question what earlier Anand asked is that, what is the relationship between these models and the development center concept. Now, development center is where you will study the people and arrive at what competencies they have, and what competencies is required for success in a particular role. If there is a mismatch between the competencies of a person and the competencies required for a role, then you are putting a square peg in a round hole. Then it doesn't work. Then it is only conflict management that happens and the survival tactics that that come into play. So basically, that is the sum and substance of it. In this, there's a clear demonstrated case where a person has taken over, and within no time, the organization has seen 50% of attrition. I mean, it happens in our day-to-day life. We experience it. That is why, the classic Harvard case article, it is said, people don't leave organizations, people leave the bosses. The first time a person thinks that he should resign from the company and join somewhere else is not because of the organization per se, because he suddenly comes across a bad boss, and a self-respecting person will not tolerate being dealt by the intimidating bosses, and therefore they leave the organization. So the whole case is around how, when you are promoting people, particularly into the leadership roles where they have to lead a lot of people, what are the competencies required for that person is what the case is all about. Now I think I'll go back to the presentation. The rest of it is there as a part of the presentation. We will discuss that from the presentation. 1 second, I will load that. Yeah, okay. Let me load this now. Okay, that is where we were. And we just had, thank you, Garima ma'am, for reading out. You've done a great help.
Pleasure,
So
sir.
now from this case study, let us, what kind of competency framework they have worked out. Again, there are various competencies that these people have come out with by virtue of the study that the HR manager has made. So the first competency they looked at is the communication skills. So shares information with and receives information from constituencies using oral, written, and interpersonal communications. So this is specific to this particular organization and the case study. So what they have come out with is at the operational level and at the mastery level, what are the competencies in communication required have been identified. Then you can have a look at it. If you have any question, you can ask me. I will clarify you. So we will go through these different communication, the competencies that these people have come out with their study. So what it basically means is you are not really following that model, that two models that we have discussed. So using those frameworks, somebody has made an independent study, and for that particular organization, they came out with what are the leadership competencies required. And probably if they follow that, and before they take a decision about somebody being promoted to that role, if they're able to test the competencies of those individuals in a development center, perhaps this organization would not have made this blunder of bringing a wrong person. Or if they still wanted to bring Mary as a regional head or regional manager, they would have trained her to acquire these leadership related competencies before being made the regional manager. Right. So quickly look at this. The indicators at the operation level and the mastery level. If you have questions, I'll answer it. Otherwise, we will go forward.
So just in case, this is not the relevant question here to ask, but it is related to this, the operational level, mastery level, or the kind of proficiency level we are talking about. So for testing, I'm going through one problem in my work where an organization called Macmillan and the Samagra Shiksha Department of Himachal Pradesh has finalized, and the university, Himachal University, has finalized one framework, competency framework for teachers that I developed, and they come up with a tool. The framework we have decided, and they are finalized in terms of completely, and they come up with a tool, and the task is to assess 66,000 teachers in the state, and their self-assessment tools comes with, I am confident about this thing, I can do this, I can that, and on legal scale. So assessing, my question is, the overrated skewed data will be the outcome of this result, the very exercise. If we administer all this tool, it is subjective in nature completely, but I don't find any solution towards to avoid overrated skewed data over and subjective data, perceptual data. This is inevitable to come with these kind of assessment tool, self-assessment tool. There could be triangulation is one of the solution, but before that, even if self-assessment is being done, it is highly possible that this outcome will come, and we will be doing exercises to avoid this or to deal with this kind of data. So, is there any suggestions from you, sir?
I think basically you are starting from a wrong end. Whoever has started this, see, I will tell you, the self-assessment tool has to be always dealt with a pinch of salt. Yeah, I used to train faculty member management teachers across the country. I have trained more than 2,000 teachers, and for 3 continuous years, non-stop, 365 into 3 years, I have trained them. And before they are brought in for the training program, we used to give them an administrative questionnaire on self-assessment first. And the self-assessment invariably would ask them the communication skills. So, I mean, it is no surprise that all of them rate themselves as very high in their communication skills, written, oral, all kinds of, and presentation, all these things. Then they come to Hyderabad to the training center, and then we conduct some kind of an interview with with some designated senior faculty members for each one of them, and they give a rating for them. And in most cases, excepting some 20-25% cases, at least in 75% cases, the self-assessment rating and the rater assessment of the faculty members in communication skills is completely different. They are almost contradicting each other. If the self-assessment is 90%, the rater rating is maybe 30% or 25%. That is how it used to be. Although they're all faculty members, so their self-concept of themselves is high, which is not reflective of the truth of themselves. Right? Now, what do you do? So for such people, if you tell them that your self-concept is wrong, they will not accept it. They will not accept the criticism on them. They will not even accept the training program. So we had to deal with these people in a different way and imparting various skills in a 30-day and almost 18 hours per day. 30 days and 18 hours per day, which is about around 500 hours of 1 month training, intensive training. Intensive training means they won't even have time to think about their food and sleep and family also. That is how intensive it used to be. They would be completely transformed. They will be completely transformed. And at the end of the 1 month, again, there will be multiple assessments, partly by self and partly by the rater assessments. And you find we found them to be completely different in terms of their performance. So therefore, if you purely rely on the self-assessments, you will not lead anywhere, because none of us have the courage to say that I am poor in my communication skills. How many of us really can say that? Many people do not have that courage to say. We are happy to rate ourselves very high and live in that, self-assessed ratings and feel that I am great. That humbleness is not there, number one. Number two, development center concept is not self-assessment. Development center, people are assessed for their competencies by at least 3 experts through various processes. And then the 3 experts will sit together. Initially, they assess them separately. Then they sit together, and if there's any disagreement, they will discuss and finally agree on a final rater score. And that will be used for communicating to the company, so that the company takes a decision on either to train somebody or not to train somebody. If they have decided somebody to be not to be promoted to a next level, then they need not even train them. They will leave them at that. So you have the choice of the company has the choice of deciding what to do with a person's development center report, for their career progression. So in your case, the challenge is you're talking about 66,000 teachers. First of all, you need to get an independent, report done by experts in their field, and then put the reports together, create some clusters of these people. Maybe you'll have to put these 66,000 teachers into 3 or 4 buckets. People who have no potential for further training and development, so you don't invest any time and money on them. And then you may have some bucket where the numbers may be small, some 10-15%. With marginal effort, they can improve their quality substantially. And in between, you will have some major chunk of teachers who will be some maybe around 65 to 70% of the teachers who require a considerable amount of toning up or training that may have to be run in phases, 3 or 2 phases. One training program will not help you to achieve the desired output for everybody. Therefore, you need to create multiple levels of multiple stages of training, and in 2 or 3 stages, you can train them and develop them, and finally, you can achieve your desired goal. So that is how you need to do, and it's a long-term process. It's a process where a lot of time, effort, and thinking is to be invested. If you do that, definitely you will improve your overall success rate. I hope I have answered your question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So you need to do a lot more thinking and developing some tools for that rather than just an individual self-assessment. Okay. The second one, of course, is the decision-making competencies in this case. Mary should have some sound decision-making competencies again at the operational level and the mastery level. The competency framework that they have worked for their organization, they have come out with a framework. So you can also again look at it and ask me if you have any question related to that. So what it basically means is, in this organization, Mary has been promoted merely on as performance in the current role. And when she got into the new role, she has not been able to successfully discharge her role responsibilities because of lack of competencies in her for that particular role. And that triggered the entire study of coming out with their own competency framework. And this is the result of it. Okay, if you have no questions, then I'll go to the next slide. Then the leadership inspires others toward a common vision, fosters trust and ethics. I think this is the single most important competence that every leader should have. The problem, what Mr. Alankar Sinha earlier asked, most of the people on whom the leadership is thrust, they don't even have any vision. Their vision is limited to their 3-year term or 4-year term for which they get the appointment. And their ambition is all to get the best out of that role in that period for them and their family, and then get out. They're not bothered about the organization. That is why, when I spoke to you about the leadership requirements at GE has a very clear philosophy. They want to select leaders. The chairman of the company will be selected in the age group of mid-40s, who has at least a decade and a half to 2 decades of tenure with GE. So when you are a long-term player with the organization, you develop that kind of a passion, and you will accept the challenge. At a mid-40s, you have a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of ideas to dabble with, and therefore the organization encourages such people to be identified that leadership position, and then you will struggle for the next 20 years to put the organization at different level altogether. But unfortunately, in certain government and the quasi-government organization, most of these roles are based on the tenure of 3 years or whatever the time that is left before a person retires. And therefore, they do not have any long-term vision for the organization. They don't look beyond their 3-year term or 2-year term or whatever is the time left before their retirement. And hence, organization does not flourish. That is the biggest fallacy in our leadership appointments in many organizations. So if you want somebody to create that vision and foster the trust and ethics in the organization, you must have a reasonable period of time for the leader to be with the organization, and then he will be able to leave his or her footprint in that organization. Okay. Then problem solving inspires others towards a common vision and trust. No, this is the first line is wrongly not replaced. Otherwise, the bottoms are the bottom table is correct. So identifying the issues and problems is one important capability. In fact, identifying the problem rightly, not the symptoms. Identifying the problem rightly is 50% of the problem solved. Many people do not have that ability to identify the problems. And identify the problems, you cannot do the identification on your own. You require a concerted effort of a team of members. And if you're not a team player and you're not a collaborator as a leader, obviously you will not be able to identify the problems also. So therefore, there is a problem at that level also, right? So these are the competencies, characteristics that are required, or the behavioral indicators required at the operational level and the mastery level for the problem solving competency. Then managing people at that level, I think if you are successful at the Mary's level, the equivalent of a branch manager, let us say, because of your focus on operations, and when you become a higher level manager at the regional level, if you are still focused on only operational requirements, you are bound to fail. Your job has now changed. You've got larger number of leaders reporting to you. You are going to work more like a coach and assessing their performance and developing the people so that the overall organization development takes place. If you don't have that and you start dabbling in the operational affairs of the branches, obviously a lot of discontentment will take place. No wonder 50% attrition is reported in her new role. So what are the behavior indicators at the operational level and the mastery level again are mentioned here. You can read them. If you have any questions, you can ask me now, or you can even ask me in the next class. Then teamwork encourages collaboration, cooperation, and partnership. This is a typical leadership trap. People who are operationally successful, if they get into the roles of leadership, they will not be able to foster collaboration. They will not have the ability to cooperate with others. They will not even take the criticism on them. And it will take a long time for them to forge partnerships, both internally and externally. And therefore, if this competency is not there, you are unlikely to succeed as a team member or a team creator, and therefore you cannot lead teams. And the competencies required here are mentioned in the table. These are all self, easily understood, self-explanatory. And then you can ask me if you have any questions later on. All right. Then strategic planning. From mid-management level to higher levels of management, you should have the background of being a strategic thinker first, and then a strategic planner. Without the strategic thinking, you cannot be a planner. Now, not everybody can be a strategic thinker. Strategic thinking requires certain competencies, certain understanding of a certain amount of knowledge, and certain levels of skills. Without these things, you cannot lead your teams. And therefore, the strategic planning, if somebody has to be put into a leadership role from an operational role, you obviously have to train that person in the leadership role, particularly in the area of strategy, visioning, missioning, and value creation, training of the people, all that, before you promote them to that leadership role. Otherwise, you are unlikely to create any impact on the teams that you are leading with, because you don't have an understanding, you don't have the strategic thinking in the first place, and therefore you cannot do any strategic planning. Then service focus values and delivers high quality and innovative service to all customers. I mean, this is a quality even at the operational level you require. So this quality or this competency may be there, But at the leadership level, it has to be a little more focused. So you need to understand the organization's business needs rather than your sales needs or the branch performance. That is why in banks, it's a very common experience in banks. Those of you who are associated with banks will watch for this. A successful branch manager need not necessarily be a successful regional manager. At a branch, as a branch head, your competencies for success are different from your competencies as a regional head or as a general manager of the branch. So therefore, a lot of people, once they grow to a higher level beyond branch, and if they are not properly trained and they are promoted, they will face a lot of existential crisis because they will not be able to lead their branch managers. So this is the same kind of a syndrome that they have, right? Seeks to understand customer needs, responds to customer needs, recommends solutions to customer needs, assumes shared accountability for improving service delivery, shared responsibility with whom? With the people or the branches which are reporting to him or her. Then improve quality improvement. Quality improvement is another competency required at the leadership level. Now, the quest for competency starts once you assume a leader's role and you have an ambition for creating a different kind of an organization. That means it requires an amount of visioning of the organization, and then getting that vision bought in by the people who are working in your teams. And once they buy in, you will be able to bring in changes in the quality. Otherwise, it is extremely difficult for anybody to bring in, because by and large, people at the operational levels are happy with the status quo. It is only the leaders who want the change. Now, to lead the change, first you have to be able to sell your change concept to the members of your teams. Unless you've got those leadership competencies, you will not be able to achieve that. And then once you do all this, once you are able to get certain people identified for the leadership roles in your organization using this leadership competency framework, then you have to get the framework assessed by various people. That could be using a 360-degree feedback. The model can be 360-degree feedback. You can use some psychometric tools that are used in the development center, and the development center processes of observation and preparing a report can be another way of doing it. So these things, the assessment of the frameworks and all, we will take it up in the future sessions. Yes, sir. You have raised your hand, Mr. Ganesh.
Yes, sir. I mean, when we are looking at this multiple fields like decision making, leadership, problem solving, I'm saying like it is just the journey from I to we, and it is
Yes.
quite similar to
Yes.
when we ask somebody like, "Are you a project manager?" Then
Mm.
most of the time people will say like, if they have experience in the office, then
Mm.
they will say like, "Yes, I'm a project manager," but otherwise they will say like, "No, I'm not a project manager."
Mm.
But then if we see the reality, everybody get the salary, everybody has a family, and in a family they work as a project manager very naturally.
Mm.
But when it comes to the course of maybe organization, then it is something like my decision is finished, so I have taken this decision, or something like my problem has been done, or my budget you have asked, so I have just given. But now here, when we say the mastery level, it is just coming from that I to we.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
whether that is, I mean, exactly the perspective that it is expecting, I mean, out of
No,
this.
that's what I was telling you. You see, in every organization in the pyramid, up to a certain level, it is I who perform. Now, like the example I gave you in the bank, a branch manager to a higher level above the branch manager. For banks, it's a big transition. It's a big challenge, and the experience of many banks has proven that branch managers promoted to higher level have not been very successful. Now, it is the responsibility of the organization to create that success for the individuals. Now, how do they create? Provided you will be able to create, provided one, you should know what are the competencies for success at that next level. Because at the branch level, you're competing for your glory as an operations head of that branch. So always it is thinking about, how much mutual funds I will get, how much of deposits I'll get, how many customers I will get. But when you grow to a next level, you are leading several branches.
Correct.
And therefore, your perspective is how I can make my people to get more business at the branch level. How can they get more customers? Now, as you
Yeah.
said rightly, it is a I to we. But then having worked it up to the branch level from maybe a probation officer to a branch manager for what 10 to 15 years, and suddenly your perspective will not change. Your competencies you will not get. Even if somebody tells these competencies are required, those competencies may not be there in you. And in many cases, if you are not a trainable material, even if you are sent for training, you may not acquire those competencies. So the options for the organization are: one, identify the competencies for the new role, which is a leadership role. Number two, identify the competencies that the individual has, assess the competencies that the individual has, assess the gap between what is required and what is available, and see whether the person is trainable. If the person is trainable, then send him or her for training to achieve those competencies. If the person is not trainable, then there's no point in trying to put them into that role. And then, the organization suffers and the individual suffers. It doesn't help. Then you have to find some other options for the individual to stay motivated and continue. Maybe you should continue him in some other branch, maybe a bigger branch, and leave it to something like that. So these are all the managerial decisions that have to be taken by the HR as well as the line leadership that is concerned with them. Now, what is the role of L&D here? The role of L&D here is that if you know the competencies required for a position, and if you've got some people who are identified as trainable material, then you train them to achieve those competencies. That is, you work to bridge the gap between what is required and what is available. Then you, as a training and development manager, have contributed for the growth of the organization.
Yeah, agree, sir. I mean, most of the time when we see the promotions, those are only based on the number of years. And then people have
That is
heavy
not,
expectations.
that's precisely what I'm saying. That perspective is changing. That model is
Yeah.
changing. Now, today, people are not looking at promoting people based on their performance in the current role. They are looking at the potential of the person for the next role. Whether you have the potential. What do you mean by the potential? Even if you have not been an outstanding branch manager, but you have the leadership capabilities, you should be promoted for that role, because you have the leadership competencies better than the operational competencies as a branch manager.
Yeah, got it, sir. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yep.
Okay, I think we have just completed the time right on the dot. So wonderful, nice discussion. I'm very happy to have these kinds of discussions with all of you. I hope this is, apart from your diploma program and the examination requirements, I hope they are also helping you to solve some of your own personal problems in your current roles in various organizations. Okay. So thank you very much. And again, we will meet next Sunday. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
you.
Bye, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Bye. Bye.